Caught my girlfriend cheating. She went absolutely insane when I kicked her out of my apartment. Hey Reddit. My girlfriend, Emma, and I had been together for 3 years, living together for almost 2. I truly believed we had something real, something built on trust. I worked long hours at my job, pulling extra shifts so we could save up for a future together. Emma, on the other hand, was finishing her last year of college, so I never really questioned why she spent so much time at home. I paid most of the bills, covered rent, groceries, everything. I wanted her to focus on her studies without worrying about money. Looking back, I realize how blind I was. The signs were there, but I ignored them. She started going out more often, claiming she needed study breaks with her friends. She would come home late, sometimes tipsy, and when I asked about her night, she gave vague answers. I didn't push. I trusted her. That was my first mistake. The second was thinking that her phone suddenly being on Do Not Disturb all the time was just because she was stressed with school. I even believed her when she told me she had been feeling distant because of all the pressure. I thought giving her space was the right thing to do. One night, I had an exhausting shift at work and came home earlier than expected. I figured I'd surprise Emma, maybe bring dinner and spend some quality time together. I walked into our apartment, expecting to see her in pajamas, watching one of her reality shows. Instead, I saw another man sitting on my couch, half-dressed, laughing with her like he belonged there. My heart dropped. My brain refused to process it at first. I stood in the doorway, holding the takeout bags, completely frozen. Emma's face turned pale the moment she saw me. The guy, on the other hand, just looked at me like I was an inconvenience. That's when reality hit. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just put the food down on the counter and asked her, in the calmest voice I could manage, what the hell was going on. She stammered, scrambling to explain, but there was nothing to explain. It was exactly what it looked like. Her excuses came out pathetic. It's not what you think, we were just talking, I was going to tell you. The guy didn't say a word. He just grabbed his shirt and started getting dressed. That made me snap. I told him to get the hell out before I lost my temper. He smirked, as if he found the whole thing amusing, then just walked past me like I didn't even matter. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't just betrayed, I was being disrespected in my own home. I turned to Emma and told her she needed to leave. That's when everything took a turn for the worse. She lost it. I expected guilt, maybe tears, but what I got was pure insanity. She started screaming at me, calling me selfish, accusing me of never being there for her. She actually had the audacity to act like this was my fault. She threw a glass at the wall, shattering it, then stormed into the bedroom, slamming the door. I followed, telling her to pack her things and leave. She refused. She sat on the bed, crossing her arms like a stubborn child, saying she had nowhere to go. That wasn't my problem anymore. I gave her 1 hour. I told her I'd be back, and I expected her gone by then. I left the apartment, needing air before I did something I'd regret. I walked aimlessly, my mind racing, my emotions swinging between rage and heartbreak. How had I not seen this coming? How long had this been going on? And more importantly, who the hell was that guy? When I finally returned, expecting an empty apartment, I was met with something worse. Emma hadn't packed a single thing. Instead, she had trashed the place. Clothes were thrown everywhere, drawers pulled out, paper scattered. She sat on the couch, arms crossed, glaring at me like I was the one who had betrayed her. That's when she said something that made my blood run cold. You can't just kick me out. I live here too. I couldn't believe it. She actually thought she could stay after everything she had done. She started going off about how I was being cruel, how she had nowhere to go, how I owed her at least some time to figure things out. She even threatened to call the cops, saying she'd tell them I was forcing her onto the street. That was when I realized I was dealing with someone who had completely lost touch with reality. I stayed calm, told her she had 2 options, leave voluntarily, or I'd make sure she left legally. She laughed in my face. Then she did something that truly shocked me. She grabbed her phone and started recording, putting on this fake crying act, talking to the camera like she was some kind of victim. She said things like, I don't know why he's doing this to me, and he's trying to throw me out with nowhere to go. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I didn't engage. I knew better. I simply pulled out my own phone and started recording too. The moment she saw that, her fake crying stopped. She stood up, furious, and tried to snatch the phone from my hands. I stepped back, told her it was all being documented, and if she didn't leave, I'd call the cops myself. That's when she snapped. She screamed at the top of her lungs, knocking over a lamp in the process. She stormed into the bedroom again, slamming the door shut. I stood there, taking deep breaths, realizing that this wasn't going to be simple. She wasn't going to leave quietly. I knew I needed a plan. There was no way I was going to let her stay after what she had done. I grabbed my keys and walked out again, this time with a new goal. I needed to figure out exactly what my legal options were. If she thought she could manipulate the situation and stay in my apartment after betraying me, she had another thing coming. And that's when I made a call that would change everything. Update. After stepping out of my apartment, I knew I had to act fast. Emma had already shown she wasn't going to leave quietly, and with the way she was acting, I wouldn't put it past her to escalate things even further. I had seen enough horror stories online about crazy exes refusing to leave, making false accusations, and dragging things out for months. I wasn't about to let that happen to me. I needed to know exactly what my rights were, so I made a call to a lawyer friend of mine, Jason. Jason wasn't a tenant law specialist, but he knew enough to give me the basics. Since the lease was under my name and Emma had never paid rent or contributed financially, she had no legal claim to stay. That was the good news. The bad news? If she refused to leave, I couldn't just throw her out myself. I would have to go through the proper channels, which meant either filing for an official eviction or proving she was a threat to my safety. That second part stuck with me because, after what I had already witnessed, I had a feeling things were going to get worse before they got better. Armed with that knowledge, I went back to the apartment, mentally preparing myself for another round of insanity. As soon as I opened the door, I knew I had made the right decision by stepping out earlier. The place was even worse than before. Furniture was overturned, pillows ripped apart, and my gaming console was smashed on the floor. Emma was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just turned my apartment into a disaster zone. When she saw me, she gave me the most infuriating smirk, like she had won some kind of battle. I didn't say a word. I started recording again, making sure to capture everything. That wiped the smirk off her face real quick. She jumped up and tried to snatch my phone, but I was ready for it. I told her, in the calmest voice I could manage, that if she didn't leave immediately, I would be calling the police. That's when she pulled her next move. She dropped to the floor, started crying, and screamed that I was abusing her. Loudly. As in, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. My blood ran cold. I knew exactly what she was trying to do. She wanted to make it seem like I was hurting her, hoping someone would hear and call the cops on me. But I wasn't going to fall for it. I kept recording, not saying a word, letting the footage speak for itself. When she realized I wasn't taking the bait, she got up, wiped her fake tears, and stormed into the bedroom again. I wasn't going to let this go on any longer. I called the cops myself. They arrived pretty quickly, and I explained everything: how she had cheated, how she refused to leave, how she was damaging my property and trying to make false accusations. I showed them the recordings. That was the only thing that saved me. Emma, of course, turned on the waterworks, playing the victim, but the officers weren't buying it. They told her she had two options: leave willingly or be removed. She started screaming again, but eventually, she packed a bag and stormed out, swearing she would ruin my life. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Another update. Emma being forced to leave should have been the end of this nightmare, but instead, it was only the beginning. I changed the locks immediately, blocked her on everything, and tried to move on. But Emma wasn't done. She started showing up outside my apartment, banging on the door in the middle of the night, screaming for me to let her in. The first few times, I ignored her, thinking she would eventually give up. But then, one night, I woke up to the sound of my phone blowing up. My friends, family, even coworkers were messaging me, asking what the hell was going on. Emma had taken things to a whole new level. She posted a long, dramatic rant on social media, claiming I had abused her, kicked her out with nowhere to go, and left her homeless. She twisted everything, painting me as the villain while conveniently leaving out the fact that she had cheated on me. The worst part? Some people actually believed her. Mutual friends started sending me angry messages, asking how I could do that to her. I was furious. I posted my side of the story, including screenshots of her texts admitting to cheating and video clips of her trashing my apartment and faking tears. That shut most people up real quick. But Emma didn't stop there. She started messaging me from different numbers, alternating between begging me to take her back and threatening me. One minute she was apologizing, saying she had made a mistake, that she missed me, that she had nowhere else to go. The next minute, she was threatening to show up at my job, telling me I would regret ruining her life. It was pure insanity. Then came the final straw. I came home from work one night and found my car completely trashed. Windows shattered, tires slashed, paint keyed with deep scratches. I knew immediately who had done it. I checked the security cameras, and there she was, Emma, in the middle of the night, going absolutely crazy on my car. That was it. I took everything, the footage, the messages, the videos, and went straight to the police. I filed for a restraining order. A few days later, she was served. That should have been the end. But Emma had one final trick up her sleeve. And this one was the worst of all. Final update. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, Emma pulled something so insane that it left me absolutely speechless. After getting served with a restraining order, she disappeared for a bit. No messages, no social media drama, nothing. I should have known that wasn't a good sign. One morning, I was getting ready for work when I heard a loud knock at my door. I checked the peephole and felt my stomach drop. 2 police officers were standing there. I opened the door, confused, and the next words out of their mouths almost made me collapse. They were there to question me about a domestic violence report. Emma had actually gone to the police and filed a false report against me. I couldn't believe it. I was beyond furious, but I kept my composure. I explained everything, showed them my recordings, the restraining order, and the texts where she admitted to lying. Luckily, the evidence spoke for itself. The officers quickly realized she was lying, and I was off the hook. But it shook me to my core. She had actually tried to get me arrested. That was the last straw. With the restraining order in place, and now proof that she had filed a false report, I pushed for legal action against her. The police started an investigation, and it didn't take long for them to find out she had a history of pulling stunts like this with past exes. That was the final nail in the coffin. Emma was arrested for filing a false police report, vandalism, and harassment. I finally got my peace. This whole experience was a nightmare, but if there's one thing I learned, it's to never ignore red flags. I thought I knew Emma, thought I could trust her. But the moment someone shows you who they truly are, believe them. I'm finally moving on, and I'll never let someone like her into my life again.